Hi, everybody. We're live. I'm sorry we're a couple minutes late, but we had some graphs we wanted to get up and make sure they would work on my computer so you could see them. And hi, Karen, and hi, Ness. And I have, the numbers are really slow running in on how many people are around us. Welcome, Sean.
Hello.
And these are some, you can see what some of the comments are. This one.
Oh, we actually have a perfect graph for that.
Is that one of the ones you sent me? No.
Yeah.
The men issue, women issue?
Yeah, the demographic breakdown of registered voters. Did you see that one? It's got the blue bars. One? Nope.
This
one? That's a good one also, but
this
that's
one?
the one. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to blow that up so I can read it, but it's on my phone, so it won't be hard. So yeah, when you're looking at that, so what you're seeing with young black women is 175.8% increase in voter registration, and that's basically in the week of July, basically from 20 to now. So 2020 to now. So what you're seeing is a huge increase in black women, young Latinas, young black women, black Americans, and young women, generally speaking. But it's really the women, period, that we're seeing huge voter registration. They got to go vote. Just because they register doesn't mean they vote. But so why this is important, obvious, is because we have a female candidate, and the idea is that they're going to go vote for that female candidate, Kamala. Well, what's really important about this is that when you're looking at likely voting polls that poll likely voters, none of these people are going to have any voter history, so they're not really considered a likely voter. Mm-hmm. They don't have even a mid-cycle really. So, and even if they had one mid-cycle, like the 2022 elections, it would still be they've never voted in a presidential cycle. Although people who tend to vote in the mid cycles will vote in the presidential, but that's not the whole thing. So when you look at the likely voters versus registered voters polls, they're not including all those women really. Another interesting point is about this data is that when you're looking at registered voters, well, young people don't poll well. We don't answer the phone. The youngins below me, they do not pick up the phone unless they know the number. So how do you poll them? What my firm does is we go and we knock on doors and we'll talk to them that way. The good news, a lot of them work from home, so that makes it real convenient. But there's really there's no really good solid way to pull that demographic and in any way really reflect what's actually going to happen. The other thing I like about this information is what it does to the suburban counties that these gerrymandered congressional districts have been using as linchpin population grapples effectively, because they have to have 780,000 citizens in their not even citizens, the population, so it could be everybody, 780,000 in their congressional district. Well, they've been using these suburban counties and districts that can as like the anchor for their population, because honestly, once you get outside of about 19 counties in Texas, there are more cows than people. So they've been using those, and I think we're going to see a lot of change. Not to mention, today I saw that there's a 3-point spread between people who like a Democrat-run Congress versus Republican-run Congress, and that's the first time I've seen anything like that since January. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on right now.
Mm-hmm. Which one of the other charts would you like me to throw up?
You go back to that one we were just looking at, the one with the little lines.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one. So this is cool. What this shows is basically where the abortion issue is. And with men for some reason, and I truly don't understand this because guys are involved in this whole thing. Um, you know, abortion is now with women well outplaying immigration, and whereas men, they're, I guess, pro. I mean, the immigration's a voting issue for them. I know the economy is for everyone's always got the economy as their number one, but going back to that other graph, which we don't have to go back to, with the number of women projected to vote in this cycle, this will beat out all females that have ever voted in a presidential cycle in the history of our country. I don't even have to check the math. You've got the millennials, which is the lower country, and they're voting this cycle big time. They're in their 30s. And then you've got women outliving men. So even in the boomer generation, you've got more women than men. So just by those two of the largest generations in the history of our country, we're going to just see a lot of action. And what this poll tells me is that, yeah, everyone believes in the economy because people got to eat. But also when it comes to abortion, it's now well outplaying the BS immigration issue that the GOP tries to throw around. And honestly, men are kind of in the middle. If you notice it, their numbers, they're 14, 15, I mean, that's the change from May to August. They're flat. But what you see in the abortion issue with women between May and August, that's 5 points. I'll take a 5-point jump over a 1-point jump when you're looking for motivated voters.
That's right. And not only that, but that number is so skewed because the press, the economy, they don't talk about it. But it's like Clinton said, and I went back and looked at some of the numbers. For every one job a Republican created, Democrats created 50.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
You want to show them the battleground states because we have some of them.
Oh yeah. So this came out a little bit ago. This is more or less recent. Well, it's the end of the month, and here we are about 5 days into the new month. So not much has changed. Arizona's killing it. Georgia, I think Arizona's gonna be better than people think. A lot of retired military. Trump is just bombing with those guys right now for about 1,000 reasons. I mean, at this point, they know that if they want any change with the VA or anything else, it's not going to come out of the Republicans. It's going to come out of the Democrats. Republicans will take credit for it, but it's going to come from Democrats. Georgia's a great one. Honestly, if she wins Georgia, there is no path to victory for Trump, really. And you got Michigan. Not worried about it. If you go to my channel, I have a whole video on all the new voting laws for Michigan. They did such a good job at expansive laws for their voting that I think Michigan's going to be it's going to be a reborn dark blue state when this is done. Nevada, it's got more union members than people. So I feel like Nevada will actually come out pretty good, even though it looks like it is a statistical tie. Pennsylvania, I think that they're counting a lot of voters in rural Pennsylvania that aren't there anymore. Plus, the last number I heard was that Kamala had 15 offices in rural Pennsylvania. That's 5 more than any other president's ever put in. And 13 more than Trump's got in there right now. So if you don't believe that organizing like that turns into votes, you're kidding yourself. I've actually worked out programs for rural canvassing, and it is hard work and it costs a lot of money. So the fact that they're putting that kind of infrastructure in tells me they're spending a lot of money where it's going to hurt Trump the most. Can't argue with that.
But there's a lot of the infrastructure money. A lot of the infrastructure money has gone into Pennsylvania, so a lot of those areas are being revitalized.
Absolutely. And in Wisconsin, I just did a video on their new laws that they've changed in Wisconsin, and that was a 13-year battle for redistricting and you name it. So they're actually they're also going to be blue as all get out. So really, the only states that really look like we have to worry about, is Georgia and Pennsylvania. And if Biden could win Georgia, Kamala should just blow it out.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion,
We're back.
we're back. But that's kind of the look. That's what the data's telling me. And I'm not seeing the biggest thing that's really speaking volumes is that Trump cannot get over 44% with his approval. He is capped. Like there is just 50.
And it's actually shrinking to some extent because it was up at 46. They kept saying he can't.
Well, no, yeah, he hasn't been able to break 44 in the last couple of months.
I
He's
know.
been down into the low 40s, 42. But 44 seems to be where he's at. And you can make that work against a candidate that is I mean, he has a 9.5 point gap between his approval rating, his approval numbers, and his disapproval. 9.5 points. Kamala is at 0.3 of 1%. That's the gap.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, when his disapproval numbers are in the mid 50s right now. So I just don't see how you win. Like the only thing that can save your campaign is the Electoral College at that point. That's what they lean on. The
Mm-hmm.
Electoral College. They can't win a popular vote in this country. They haven't won one for non-incumbent since probably Reagan. So, since the advent of the personal computer, that was the last time they did that.
Mm-hmm. And you can see what states are fighting hardest in, like the games they've been playing in Georgia, that Mark Elias, they just won a court case on part of that last week. But to suppress a vote in Georgia, they wouldn't be fighting so hard to suppress a vote in Georgia if they thought they had a chance. And also the same thing with Pennsylvania. They fought so hard to have the mail-in ballots invalidated, and that the Supreme Court's not going to look at the case. So,
so today I actually posted a video on Georgia's law changes that they made, and it's brutal. Like they're literally like pulling locations out of precincts and districts that are people of color, like flat out just doing that. Like that's a thing. Georgia's gonna go blue because there's a very small group of old white men in Georgia telling a much larger group of progressives that they can't vote. And that big ass group of progressives are going to show those gentlemen what's what, in my opinion.
Time to rein the massa in.
Well, I don't know about that, but definitely these guys are not the good guys.
No. What do you
North
see?
Carolina. So in North Carolina, and I've got to go back to my notes really quick. Yeah, I did a video on the 1st about North Carolina's law changes. I think North Carolina's going to be tight. I think it's going to be, but it's doable. And there's a ton of money flowing into North Carolina right now. I would say Texas is probably paid for 1 out of every 2 doors they're knocking on in North Carolina, because we're not doing it here. So that's my feeling. Like North Carolina is definitely in play, and they're not afraid to go into some parts that get normally any investment at all. They're kind of the same playbook they're using in Pennsylvania. They've got tons of offices in counties where they've never had offices before. And honestly, half this gig is just showing up. If you're there and you're present, they'll be like, well, at least they showed up. Trump's not putting offices in anywhere. He's closing offices because they don't have any money. They can't support his court cases and run his campaign at the same time.
When Susie and I were in Iowa canvassing for Obama in 2008, there were already there's a huge field of Democrats, but there are already Democrats there that their offices were always closed because I already knew, what it was going to come down to. And it was a very interesting time because, first of all, Susan had never been in the snow before, and she canvassed. There are icicles that were taller than she is, and she's 6 feet tall. I mean, it was cold and it was wet, and people, how we don't answer the phones because we don't want to answer polling, or we don't want to be. We never get polled in Texas because everybody thinks they know what our answer is going to be. But in Iowa, the people got so tired of people coming up to their doors and knocking on it, and it was a cold winter. People started pouring buckets of water on their steps in the morning so you couldn't get to their door. That's hardcore.
All we got was Post-its promising that they were going to vote for Obama and please stop canvassing. That's when I knew that.
Yeah, that's the other thing they used to say is, don't call me again, or I might have to reconsider.
Right. Yeah. When you knock on 380,000 doors and really there's only probably 100,000.
Yeah. Oh, do you know who was on AP Wire today that endorsed Kamala and is voting for her?
I do know. Miss Cheney.
No. Yeah, Jimmy McCain. Yeah.
That's John Cheney. McCain. Oh, John McCain's son. Yeah, I saw that one too. Mm-hmm. Yes. Liz Cheney's also endorsing Kamala.
And voting for her.
Oh, and voting for her. Yeah.
Don't say I'm not voting for Trump and then write in Ronald Reagan's name. It doesn't.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't help.
I mean, it does technically if they're Republican. I have a whole video on why you should never vote third party. But if you're Republican, feel free.
If you have a question, Sean has a video for that.
I literally do at this point. Yeah. Well, because anytime I get a question on my feed, or a comment in one of my videos, I'm like, great. Mm-hmm. And I literally cut and paste it and put it in a Word doc that's sitting on my desktop that says ideas for videos. So I get through all the videos and what weird questions. Like I got a question for what are all the law changes that are happening in all the different states. And I just kind of did the ones that mattered. And that's what the last week's almost all been, is just those. And I'm also doing a whole series of videos on the states, the swing states, and no, not even just swing states, the states that have choice on the ballot. Like Nebraska's got 2 different choice votes on the ballot. Mm-hmm. One is to codify it that they're a pro-life state, and the other one is to not kill women. So, I feel like, no one's really talking about Nebraska. Man, I wouldn't be surprised if something weird happens in that state. That state's got so much weird stuff going on right now. Polling's all over the map. It's way closer than it's ever been. I just don't think there's a lot of polling history in that state, really, for all the reasons that we can assume.
It's still hard. I mean, it's hard to poll there. Nebraska's very spread out. It's got a couple of cities, and then the rest of it's all over everywhere.
I mean, I don't know much about Nebraska women, but I doubt that they really appreciate being told what to do. So I have a feeling that the women of Omaha may be stepping up a bit. What's interesting about Nebraska, though, the way they give their electoral votes is by congressional district. So you can actually split the electoral votes in Nebraska, which is really interesting. And I think part of the weirdness that's going to come out of Nebraska.
Okay, we've got questions people wrote in, so we're going to go to those now. And Professor Nina, what will Harris and her team do to help with the safety in schools in general? As an educator, I can tell you many are leaving the profession now. We're burnout, not well paid. And I did abbreviate that so it fit.
Sure. So the Department of Education, the federal government, man, the only real thing that they do that like you would actually see in a school that isn't administrative or program policy based, they help with school lunches. The states and the counties and the municipalities are the ones that control how safe our students are going to be. Um, all the feds would be able to do is send out an unfunded mandate. You know, I
Mhm.
I don't believe. I think it's the right question. But instead of Harris, it should be whoever your county judge is, whoever your um, governor is, whoever your mayor is, whoever your ISD highest official is, where it be
Mhm.
director, have you. Those are the individual. Your legislatures. If you're tired of having children shot in schools, well, then your legislatures can absolutely step up and change the entire dynamic, and they do it with one law. So, um, I mean, that's my
And
feeling on
if
it.
you live in a place where calling your legislator, I still call them even when they're red. They do keep track of what the calls are about. But call everyone you know that perhaps leans their way and say, "Is it okay to turn children into targets so gun manufacturers can make money?"
Oh yeah, that's all it is. It's just money, and
Mhm.
it's money and uh, uneducated votes. That's what they're
Right.
after. And
You you were out of school. Had Columbine happened when you were still in public school?
no, Columbine happened when I was just getting in. Was it Columbine? What year was that? Anyway,
You would not have been in high school because
no,
Susie
I don't think I don't believe
Susie
I
was
was.
in second grade.
But I was in junior high when they put in metal detectors,
Yeah.
and it was weird when I moved and I left the states and I moved to a we'll call it tropical rural. Um, it was weird because it was the first time since really elementary that there weren't cops on campus when I was in school. Like there was nothing. I was like, this is so weird because I went from, you know, a junior high in South Dallas. We had metal detectors and cops and everything all the
Mhm.
time, and to a school like about a third the size probably, and no cops, no metal detectors, no nothing. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, it was weird in the beginning, but by the
Mhm.
end of it, it was fine. I
Yeah,
kind of
well, there is hope our children can come back.
sure. Well, I mean, you understand, it's like the shootings that happened when I was in school are a joke compared to the stuff that's happening these days. Or even the last decade or 2 decades, really. Uh, yeah, we were hiding under our desks because we were going to get blown up by the
Tornadoes.
USSR. Yeah, no, it
Right.
was yeah we had or tornado drills really more than anything in my when I was in school. Um, the kids now, and honestly, I think I mean I get why you have to have drills on that kind of stuff, but um, it's it's a sad band aid on a real problem.
Right. Okay. And the real problem is the idiots with guns.
It's
But
in the
anyway,
legislatures, yeah.
Janet Jackson wants us to stay in love and out of fear. Love, loving, healing, white light to all of us. So that's for the whole. She sent that message in for the whole community. And then this is a darker question. What about Trump's cronies? Why does nobody look into his dark money laundromat, faith and freedom, his ties with Putin?
Oh, well, actually, the Supreme Court took a really, really good look at that and decided they liked it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say there's lots of people looking at it. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court has decided that all those cronies and all that stuff he does with,
Because they give
well,
them money,
yeah, oh yeah, no, he's paid off a couple members of the Supreme Court. Those guys should be in jail.
right? And Eric Prince, he's another, Prince is the wrong name for that guy. And Liz, they do. And the thing is, we have to get a different administration and we need the different people in the House
We
and
need
the
to
Senate.
expand the court, and we need to get rid of Citizens United, and we need to put teeth back into the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
If we do that, then we're gold.
Then we get rid of
Swear
the
to God, because
electoral
that would
college.
take care of gerrymandering, and that would take care of all the dark money. And once all the dark money's out, it's super hard for them to funnel that into their little cronies, those people that of which you speak. Because the only way to 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 beat this cancer that is in our government is to starve it out.
Right.
because
We
you
have
could try
another
and cut
point.
it out, but you're gonna end up. That's kind of what they want you to do, because then they know that you're going to destroy parts of the government to
Right.
get to it, and that's kind of chopping off the arm.
Yeah.
You know.
This is Punisher Mr. Wick. That's not a handle I really understand. You're right, Nancy. If we start thinking about what's going to go our way every day all together, the outcome will become positive and overwhelming success. And the part I had to cut off so it would fit on the little in the little box was he said, we move in that direction and then we fall into fear and we lose it. So keep your head in positive thoughts. And then, this one was one that came in the last.
It's all a Democrat in Texas can do.
I know. Are there no rules of
decorum.
decorum? Calling the vice president a lying black B word like Trump and Vance seems to throw into conversation, and everybody stands around like it's just fine. I'm really interested to see what ABC is going to do with this debate, because they insisted that the microphones remain open. His people did. And it's going to be interesting to hear what he mutters under his breath, because we're going to have mics.
He's going to try and Hillary Clinton her pretty hard. Yeah. The problem is that, well, and the thing is, like, Hillary's no schlump either. She's an attorney. But because I think everyone's seen every single play he can make, they've got plans on plans to deal with that moron. And it's not that he's not any kind of super genius. He's just doing things that no one would do because they're decent human beings. And it's kind of like how we got schooled with the Supreme Court. Harry Reid thought that Mitch McConnell and him were playing by the same rules. When in reality, Mitch McConnell only has one rule: power. And how fast can I get it? And how fast can I put it in my party? So Harry Reid didn't know that. So Harry Reid got played. And that's how, in fact, we have Supreme Court justices who got played, who thought for sure, I mean, it's a real, the Republicans have stopped being nice when we got a black man elected president. And they weren't real nice before that. But they have never forgiven the Democratic Party for getting Obama elected. Because all MAGA is just rebranded Tea Party. So these morons have been around for going on 14 years.
Yeah, and the Tea Party was you know how you have grassroots things that rise up? The Tea Party, when we were in politics, we watched them. They were AstroTurf. They were funded by the Koch brothers to create a dynamic way. And trust me, Sean and I were there watching them grow, and we're like, where'd these people come from? And there's a lot to be said when people, thank God, the Justice Department yesterday went after the groups that are just, that are, what is it, infoflage, like camouflage. They're infoflage for other governments. Thank God they went after them and pointed them out and stopped them. And I heard a summary from Alan Weissman yesterday that the way that the indictment's written against the two that they got that were in the country, the way it's written, they're cooperating. And I don't know how you can tell. Lawyers do those things. I don't do those things. But that's going to help us to some extent. And I noticed there was a lot fewer postings on my Facebook today.
Well, quite honestly, and yeah, when you and I broadcast on YouTube, I check all my sources. I don't believe anybody. I don't. I mean, even if I see like New York Times or Washington, I go to, so I get my news from AP. I get my news from Reuters. I like BBC. I like NPR. I mean, but AP is lit, and Reuters is where I go. Because what you'll find in a lot of these other news groups is that they'll just copy and paste what AP put it in their thing, change a few things, and then put it up. So might as well just read it from AP. Also, AP doesn't jump the gun and put out stuff that's not accurate because they can't prove it. Once they can prove it, it's out. A lot of these guys will just be gun jumping. And they'll say, oh, it's all this. Well, really, it was this much. I don't play that game. My time is too valuable to waste it on noise.
And we don't want to mislead people because it reflects on us. I mean, I can't imagine doing that. I have to read these, Sean, because there are people driving around their cars who can't read what this says.
Okay, no problem.
DeSantis is trying to review signatures on the Florida abortion amendment because if you've never done a petition, you have to have so many signatures. They have to be valid. They have to totally match. And trust me,
He can review all they want. The most you'll ever get in any kind of review like that was about 10%, maybe.
maybe if you went into a schlucky crowd of people that were hot.
Right. And they had 3 times the number of signatures they needed. No, we're in I think it's tomorrow. Because today is Georgia, tomorrow is going to be Florida. I'm doing a show on the laws that have been changed. And when you look into Florida, really, I'm not worried about the signatures. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. What I'm worried about is the Gestapo nonsense police force that he's created to judiciously, go through on election and go to polling locations and shut polling locations down for no reason or any reason they want.
Mm-hmm.
Florida's got way bigger problems than him reviewing some signatures because he can review all they want. They had so many more than they needed, And the guys who did that, I know a lot of them. They're very smart and they do know what they're doing. And I'll tell you straight now, they definitely had their I's dotted, T's crossed. You'll only get 10%, and they always submit twice as many as they need.
Mm-hmm.
Your biggest problem is the Gestapo nonsense that Florida's put into their election laws, where they can just start shutting down.
The private police force, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's full on. I think in my video I call it Animal Farm.
Mm-hmm.
Just the pigs, those are the dogs.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's a statement from Ness. I hope you're right, Ness. Gerald Ford predicted the first female president would be a VP first, and then there would be a long line of female presidents after that. We'll see.
We got lots of incredible talent.
We've got so much
Congress and it's all on our side. I mean, the best the Republicans have been able to come up with, if you think about it, for the last now going on, 8 years, or actually really since 2010, is Trump. That's the best thing they've had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the days of candidates like Mitt Romney getting through their primary are long gone.
Yes, the scandal of Mitt putting a dog on the top of his car. Anyway, he used to put it in a kennel when my family took trips.
Yeah, I saw that he stopped in Virginia and Minnesota and New Hampshire. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're consolidated. He's got to win Georgia. He has to win Pennsylvania. He has to win Ohio. And I think Ohio is I know the polling doesn't look great, but like I said, all the polling I'm seeing is relatively small samples and likely voters. That polling's gonna move. And once it goes to registered voters and it gets to samples above 1,000, I think Ohio, because it's such a small population, and I actually have on my channel a demographic breakdown of Ohio for those that are interested. But
there's not a state that escapes.
No,
there's 50 of them.
Yeah, if it's between if it touches a lake in the north, I probably have done a demographic breakdown of it. But yeah, it's definitely. I love it. I love it when the other team pulls out because we're still in New Hampshire, we're still in Virginia, so now we're the only ones in those states.
Mm-hmm. And if you get your numbers get big enough, you can send your people to other states. It's what
we sent so many people to Colorado in 2008.
And New Mexico.
So many. We shipped out so many of our operatives out of Obama Dallas.
Out of Obama Dallas, which was a separate pack from the Democratic Party.
Yep.
We had people showing up with just gas cards, so people could get gas for their cars or whatever they needed. And
Campaign Finance has closed that loophole, by the way.
Oh, did they? Because it benefited us. What can I say? See, all these things change, guys, because I quit when I was 65. Because I was the oddest person in the world. I ran walking programs and I could barely walk. And so I retired and went home, and somebody said, "You know how to read cards. Why don't you read cards in our bars once a week?" And I said, "That sounds like a lot more fun." And it is. It really is. Um, okay, so we talked about North Carolina briefly. What do you see for North Carolina?
All right. Since they're asking, give me 4 seconds here. So North Carolina, what do I see? Okay. So one of the things I don't like about North Carolina, so when I look at a state, I look at a lot of different pieces of math. So the younger the state is, demographically speaking, I think the better there is a chance of movement for the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
It's one factor of many. But what I don't like about North Carolina is that the average age of the United States is 38 and a half years old.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina is 39.1. Doesn't sound like a big deal. It's really not. It's when it breaks 40 is when I get a little nervous. And it's plateauing out, which means it's not accelerating its age. It'll probably begin to drop under 39 in a few years. But the other thing that concerns me is there's just a ton of boomers still in that state. As far as women goes, technically, according to the census, there are more boomer females than there are millennial females in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But there are more millennial men than there are boomer men in North Carolina. And that's not necessarily what you want to see. The opposite would be great, or just more on generally the younger voters generally. Also, demographically speaking, as far as race goes, you're looking at just a very large, white population, and that also is a bit.
But the other shift that we don't look at much is how much of them are imports. They're not natives to the state. North Carolina's huge upsurge in non-native born North Carolinians being there.
Right.
But
what I do like about North Carolina is that they've been trending towards becoming more blue. So that those younger voters are stepping up. I think economically they're seeing that, doing that because they're almost a little tech corridor on their own now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're seeing the benefits of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Are you frozen? I think he's frozen. That happens where Sean lives. He gets frozen. And he may disappear in a minute, and then he'll come back. Anyway, the other questions we have that I'm looking at that I know I can help you answer. Oh, yeah. Fox is speaking to a very small part. That may be the best way for you to judge who Fox really speaks to. They harp on immigration all day long. I live closer to the border than anybody that's in that Fox. There he goes. He'll be back. It's obviously not penetrating to a larger number of people because people don't go to Fox. Matter of fact, there's one woman who wrote something really bizarre, and I got caught up in her cousin's chat with her. He's back.
Sorry about that. My internet's decided to be a little weird.
The way Fox talks about immigration, I'm just telling them from my perspective, just watching. They talk about it all the time, but it's not going up in anybody's consciousness. It's sinking because people have either decided it's a false issue and there are not waves of immigrants coming up their front lawn, or they were already bending that way and that they're just set in that way. And so it's kind of a frozen number.
Also, yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors. So I have a friend in New York who I was roommates in college with, and I have a friend down in Houston that I was roommates in college. We're all friends. And my friend in Houston's a liberal like me. And he goes down to the border quite often because he works with ISDs and companies down there in Brownsville.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually, and our friend up north is like, in New York, is hardcore conservative, gun-toting, half
Mm-hmm.
Japanese, half African American. We keep explaining to him during the revolution that he keeps talking about, it's not going to be good, but he don't listen to us. So, but my friend, literally went to the border and went, "Where is that army that the Republicans keep talking about?" He's like, got him on his phone, going, "Can you see
Mm-hmm.
this army? There's no army here. Stop listening to Fox."
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they run the same like 10 minutes of footage they got 5 months ago to prove that things are out of control. If they're out of control, they'd have live footage. It's
Trust
not
me,
out.
if it was out of control, if you get a map, I-35, right, it's right past my city and goes down to the border. And when we had some real drug problems, I-35 was the drug corridor, and we had problems, and it was reflected in the crime rates around us, and that's all gone. You know,
Yeah.
people who run the drugs now are the big pharma companies that sell them out of pharmacies.
The cartels are too busy fighting amongst themselves on the other side of the border, and the big pharma ran them out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Like they basically backdoor legalized weed here in Texas, and Texas was probably a top 2 consumer in the
Oh yeah.
United States. And believe it or not, guys, that was a huge chunk of their business. And now they're fighting over scraps and nonsense down there. It's not there. The biggest problem is from Venezuela, that their entire economy is collapsing, and there
Mm-hmm.
we have coups in South America. We've got big problems that have nothing to do with Mexico. Mexico is our number one business partner of the United States. We
Mm-hmm.
do more business with Mexico than we do Canada or any other country in the world, including
And there's
China.
a lot of companies that are investing and that used to put plants in China, but it's so unstable over there. They're building them in Mexico.
No, yeah, they started doing that. Basically, they had started before COVID, but COVID was like the wake up bell.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, quite honestly, world trade, the free world trade that we fought and you know basically underwrote as the country,
Mm-hmm.
as the United States. People went, why do we have $37 trillion in debt? We literally policed the world since
Mm-hmm.
1946. We said, if you trade with us and all of our partners and exclude the USSR and Iran and anyone else we don't like, North Korea, whatever, then we guarantee you that your freight, your container ships will get from point A to point B. And the reason we know that is because we have 900 destroyers and cruisers that says that's going to happen. We're now down to 80 cruisers and destroyers, and they're not there to patrol anymore. They're there to protect our 13 super carriers, which has about 5,000 times the amount of air force
Mm-hmm.
power of the next most powerful country. So we don't patrol the seas anymore because we don't need foreign oil, and our manufacturing is right over in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no more market in China because their demography is garbage. Europe's done. Germany's about to close Volkswagen. That's because they don't have personnel or a market to manufacture and then
But
buy those.
meanwhile, they're having a rise of the racist right that don't
That's
want the
stress of
immigrants to come in there.
economic. That's a stress of an economic downturn. You got to point at somebody and say they're the
Mm-hmm.
bad guys. Otherwise, those elected officials tend to become the bad guys. They don't like that. No, there's a huge change happening on the planet right now,
Mm-hmm.
economically speaking, and Mexico is our best friend. And I think business has figured that out, and they've also figured out that the Republicans are basically racist,
Mm-hmm.
and that they don't want to deal with Mexico, or they want a boogeyman that they can point to, so they don't have to pay for healthcare, education, and retire in the largest retiring generation history of our country. They in the
Yay!
military. They don't want to pay for any of that. So they're looking for a boogeyman, and if the boogeyman doesn't really speak very good English, that's just that much more helpful. And you can't point Canadians; they're Canadians.
Oh, quit picking on my family. Um, Question. This, and I threw this one up because she's asked it a couple different ways. It's might not be your area of expertise, but can you speak about the supposed rise of black men voting for Trump? And when I think about the exonerated Central Park Five and the racism he showed there, and it was at the convention. I don't know how many other people, if they weren't watching the convention, what they know. But do you really think, Sean, you and I both had more minority candidates that we ran than when we were doing local politics than Anglos? Uh, do you really see that switch? I don't sense it.
I think it's the group they're talking about, and they do exist. You gotta understand, like, this, my generation.
Is he frozen again? Huh. You got to get this
I'm
worked
back.
out.
Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Mm.
My internet's going in and out. So this generation of African American men that are in business are the first generation that can actually pass on wealth to their offspring. And so what you're seeing is that Republicans are super protective of making sure that that money can go from point A to point B without being taxed.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that just like anybody, they don't want to pay taxes on something that they're giving to their children.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be the small business entrepreneurial and African American male voter. Now, what's interesting is what Kamala has done over the last really 72 hours. I don't know if any of you've heard of this, but she's looking at a $50,000 tax break for new small businesses, and which basically means that you won't pay taxes up to, so let's say you owe $49,000 in taxes, you won't owe that if you're a small business. And that's not they're not saying only for black people or any of that stuff. It's for any small business. But honestly, if you're looking at which groups are creating more small businesses, it's women and minorities. So I think that they're working to address that issue. But yes, those voters do exist. They're usually, and I work with nothing but African American men and women. That's my team is nothing but that. The joke in the office is I'm the guy. Somebody's got to talk to the cops. So,
unfortunately, at some campaigns it's happened. But...
it's kind of a joke, but it's happened. So is it a joke? I don't know.
No.
But it wasn't nothing we did wrong. But somebody's got to talk to the cops, and so I do better at that. But yeah, it's there. It's a real thing. It's them looking out for themselves, and as a population that has not been treated well and has had very few people looking out.
They've had their generational wealth undermined. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jesus, they were firebombed in Tulsa. I mean, there's tons of examples of the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, as one, but then you've got stuff that happened in Georgia and North Carolina. The African American population in this country has lifted themselves up by their bootstraps many times, even though that saying's completely wrong.
Even when everybody keeps taking the bootstraps away.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, no, they exist, and honestly, they have good reason to, in my opinion.
Well, you
what do I see for Maine?
Well, they're talking about like last time when Susan Collins announced she'd won a half hour after the polls closed.
Maine can solve its problem when it stops electing that woman. I don't know how Susan Collins gets reelected.
I do. I have friends up there. She calls people on their birthdays.
Who cares? I don't give a crap. She's the reason that so many bad things have gone through.
I know.
And she's saying, the Senate, it's insane.
Oh, he's learned his lesson. God.
Oh no, she's evaluating, or she's thinking about. There's always. with all the Supreme Court appointments and all that nonsense. I was like,
Mhm.
come on, get real, woman. No, she is the worst female sitting senator
That we have.
because of the state she comes from. There are worse female senators, don't get me wrong, that in the Republican Party. But she's the worst because she comes from a state that should be blue.
Mm-hmm.
It should be. I don't get it. I don't like her. I can't stand to listen to her. Every time she talks, I just want to throw something at the television. No.
Yeah, well,
I hope
I'll
that
get
answers
to
your question.
point. I knew that would set him off, guys, because we discussed these things.
God, ever I don't like her. Forever. It's like,
I know. No one, and Democrats can't figure it out, Target practice, the reason for taking away women's birth control, not funding free lunches, but they don't have the energy to hide kids away from the shooters or to hide the guns away from the shooters. That's just a comment. We don't have to answer that.
yeah, I get it.
Okay, getting rid of the Electoral College, Sean.
Well, the second you can get about 37 states to back it, then it'll be gone.
And that's going to be tough when they've carved
it
out
was
a certain
put there
country.
for a reason. It was put there
Mhm.
because of racist pieces of crap in the South.
That's why we have North Dakota and South Dakota instead of just Dakota.
Right.
So that's why we have West Virginia and Virginia and North and South Carolina, because that gave them more leverage. For those of you who fell asleep in that part of your civics class.
No, I get rid of the electoral. It's non-democratic. I mean, it's as non-democratic as that BS filibuster in the Senate. You know what's great about the filibuster? It's not a thing. It's not even constitutional. You want to talk about the real problem in our country? The filibuster in Senate is the worst thing that ever happened. That's how we got the Supreme Court that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they let 33% of the population of this country decide for the other 66%.
The other part of us getting that is, I used to, and Sean can testify to this, I used to ramble on about how people didn't understand how dangerous it was for them to be to disenfranchise themselves and just say, well, I'm not going to vote because then I don't want to make a mistake. Well, first mistake you made was not voting. And the second one is that's what led to Hillary losing. These people thought she was going to win. And you can say all the shenanigans and what the Russians did and everything else. Only 48% of the likely voters voted in that election. And somebody came up to me because they knew how hard I worked on registering people and trying to get stuff out. And I was pissed. And I said, I am more angry at people who are registered to vote that didn't vote. They didn't understand. We lived in kind of the hotbed of the churches not wanting to take away women's rights. They were serious. People were treating them like, oh, they can't do that. They can do anything you allow them to do, and you allow them to do when you don't become involved. And may I say, I am so pleased and happy with the Psychics for Democracy, what Deborah Lupien and Helen Irish Granny put together. If you haven't seen it, they're rerunning it in 2-hour chunks. You can still donate on the hot button line that's on that if you choose to. That's how we make a difference, when we become involved. And I talked to people who are on there who said, oh, I've never done anything about, this. And a lot of people think it's not spiritual to be involved in politics. Trust me, it's the most spiritual thing you can do. When you talk about taking care of your brothers and sisters and giving them warmth and light, you don't do that by going and hiding in a hole and not voting in the most public forum we have. And let's see, I'm off my soapbox. Somebody said they couldn't hear you, Sean. Oh, that's because you were frozen. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I was frozen.
Just catching up to that. Hi, Gigi.
Man.
Sean, if you like Sean and I together, you're going to love Saturday. Noon Pacific time, we think. That's the last word we got. He and I are going to be on with Linda G. and I'll
That'll be
send out a notice when I know more. And we are going into cycle of divine feminine, and I'm not going to put that as part of this. We're trying to find things for Sean. And
sometime in the next 5 days, I am doing another polling video on my. If you've ever been on my channel, everybody loves the polling videos. I'm making all my subscribers eat their vegetables right now because they were asking me about laws and states and stuff. It's not very sexy and it's not really that fun, but it's super interesting. I'm putting out a polling video before the 10th because that's the next debate, probably the only debate. I'm going to see where the polls are then, and we're going to look at it where the polls are post debate. So that's coming down on my channel soon.
okay, poor Pegasus lives in Idaho. She's blue. That's an odd state.
Idaho. No, they don't count.
No, not much.
Well, it's
You never know.
to Google. You don't ever know. You got to keep voting. Also, all politics is local, and if you're looking for, agricultural bills and all that stuff tend to be bipartisan, but recently they haven't been. The Republicans have been dropping the ball on those bills, and
that's how they've held the farmers.
That's how they've held the farmers. They're losing those farmers right, left, and center. So the Democrats are coming out with the bills where you have the right to fix your equipment, and they're actually getting some Republican help on that. There's some bipartisan stuff coming down. But you can understand the Democrats taking the initiative on that. If the Republicans wanted to pass stuff like that, they could pass it all the last 2 years they've had control of Congress, of which they have done zero.
Yeah,
and it's the worst performing Congress in history of Congress without a Great Recession. So, I'm the Republicans have dropped the ball on so many issues like that because they're corporate shills and all that dark money because of Citizens United is just flowing into their bank accounts. And what's weird is that because the National Rifle Association's been gutted, they can no longer launder money from Russia into Republican campaigns. Now all that's been shut off. The Republicans have been and also with the abortion
issue. This is for entertainment purposes only. Sean and I have not seen the books, but
no, not yet.
We have strong reason to believe.
Sure, and and with the Roe being taken off the table, which by the way the GOP has raised trillions of dollars for campaigns over the last 50 years just off that one issue. They're having to go to other different corporate entities and different special interest groups in order to maintain their coffers to be able to compete in campaigns. I mean, the money's got to come from somewhere. So when you see these Republicans backing off of farm subsidies and the right to fix their own equipment and making sure that you get diversification of seeds in agriculture and agricultural development, all that stuff they're running away from now is because corporations are telling them to run away from that. And the only people you got listening are the only people who really don't have are the urban and suburban candidates, which are all blue, but also understand that if your economy can't grow anything, you don't have an economy. The Democrats, they understand how that stuff works. So it's my hope that trend continues. I mean, sorry about the GOP, but whatever. And then states like Idaho will eventually open up because they'll realize that there are more important things than making sure people are sleeping with the right people or getting married to the right people or having the right number of children or having children at all. I mean, there are more important things than wondering what's happening in other people's bedrooms. The second the Republicans wake up and figure that out, you'll see Idaho change. You'll see, I think Nebraska's in play. I think Nebraska's doing weird stuff. I mentioned that earlier. So, yeah. Kansas, who knows? Kansas has had, I know that they've had state-funded pre-K. They're the only red state that did that. And the reason was because they realized that you have pre-K, your kids do massively better as they go up in school. And then the employers that would like to employ competent workers have employers that will pass a basic math test. And so the employers and the companies came down to the legislature and said, yeah, pre-K is fine. And that's what's going to happen.
Well, I can tell you the scariest figure I ever saw is when I was working with Crime Watch and Public Safety. And they look at the reading competency scores of the fifth graders in the state of Texas, and then they know how many jail cells they're going to need in 15 years because they don't fix the kids.
Well, the prison system in rural Texas is one of the largest funders of rural Republican campaigns.
Oh, I know. That's
that I think is one of the big, like, so all.
He's frozen again. Okay. I'm going to put up one thing.
Prisons, hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead. Prisons, hospitals, and then cows. Age limit.
So our goodbye statement today is going to be Helen Robinson's holding out for age limits and money limits in politics. And she thinks that'll clean up a whole lot of this. Well, we'll get rid of the old farts.
So we just get rid of Citizens United, you get rid of the money. Right now, the money doesn't have any limits, right? So that's a problem. And as far as the age limit goes, I'm pretty sure that's another 37 states all have to agree, which means you got to get a lot of people who would be aged out to vote for it.
Yeah, as Tim said, mind your own business. That's sort of all to sum it up. Anyway, we're not ignoring the shooting in Georgia, but it's such a hard thing. I'm working with the people I can on the fringes of it, but sitting around talking about it only makes everybody more scared.
Yeah, actually, I've been just reading the news the last few days because I don't want to watch that stuff.
No, you've got kids.
If the politicians were really interested in solving this problem, it'd be solved. They're not interested. Whatever they say, it's whatever. But they're not interested.
But anyway,
Georgia,
thank you.
Not in Texas, not in any red state.
Thanks to Sean for showing up. Thanks to everyone who's come. And I wanted to get him today because I think you go to Wisconsin next week.
They're working on it. They're working on it.
Sean can work. The information he uses is electronic, so he can work wherever he is. But
I can do my job from the moon if I've got Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you're gonna. We need to get you up there before the snow flies, though.
Yeah. I think if I go up there, I'm not coming back anytime soon.
I know. I'll have one child in the frozen north. What can I say? Anyway, thank you to everyone who showed up today. Thank you for Sean for stopping by and giving me some more fun new graphics. And
you're welcome.
If you see the notice come up to watch Psychics for Democracy, there's some really interesting stuff. One of the most interesting things was Deborah answering Granny's questions about 40 plus characters that were part of the revolution. She's going in the Akashic records and getting what they think about us now. It's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff. So anyway, everybody have a good day. And like I said, I'll let you know about Saturday. If you want to be kept up, subscribe to my channel and you'll get all the notices you need. Thank you very much. Bye.
Hi, everybody.